This lesson focuses on the IELTS reading question type table completion questions. Let's take a close look at these. So, just to get familiar with what these questions look like, you're going to have a table, and the table almost always has some type of title to it, okay? This can be an important clue. Now, of course, the title is going to reflect something related to what you're going to read in the passage, yes, but the title could give you an idea about what portion of the passage you need to look at, okay? There can be important information in a title, so make sure to read it each time. Then as we go down, going from top to bottom here, in this case, we have three different aspects of a lesson plan, okay? So this is something I guess we're going to be reading about in the article in this case, but it's three categories or three ways to categorize lesson planning that we see there. Then across the top, we have a different set of criteria. In this case, we have 4 segments. So we can expect in the article to find information related to 4 different segments. Okay, and then the goal is to fill in the blanks, of course. So we've got 4 blanks here, and we need to fill them out. So just for number 1, without even reading the article, we know that we're going to have to find something related to timing in segment 1. Whatever segment 1 is, we need to find out what the timing is. Okay, now as we go down the line, we see different times here, 20 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes for these different segments. So we would just have to find, we could guess the appropriate time to fill in for this answer in number 1. Okay, so that's sort of how these work. You just need to sort of analyze these charts, try to figure out what's missing, and then go back to the article and find that information. Okay, we're going to talk about that more in detail and do some practice. This is just an introduction to this question type so you can see what it looks like. All right, now, further introduction. Like other questions in this sort of similar category, like for chart completion, for example, you've seen a similar sort of directions here. We've got 2 types. The first is where you would have answer choices in a box presented to you. Okay, so maybe if you have to fill in 4 answer choices on the table, maybe there would be 6 or 7 answer choices to choose from in the box, and you just have to find the best label. Okay, these will often be paraphrases in these boxes, or you have to select answers from the text as short answers. Okay, so you won't be provided with any answers. You'll be given a number of words that are allowed, words and numbers, and you'll have to go find those in the text to complete the short answer questions. All right, so both types are possible with these table completion questions. You just have to look to the directions to see which one you have for a particular question set you're looking at. All right, now what should you do to approach this question? Well, just keep in mind that answers usually come from one section of the test. Okay, that doesn't mean necessarily only one paragraph. It could be more, 2 or 3, but at least it's not taken from the entire text. Usually, you won't have to search from the beginning to the end of the text to find the answers to fill in the table. Usually, they come from at least some smaller portion of the text. Okay, now, unlike some other question types like multiple choice questions, the answers may not come in order. You have to find the section of the text where the answers are likely to come from, but don't expect that they come in any kind of order for this question type. Number 2, pay close attention to the categories and the headings in each chart. Okay, that information along the top of the chart and along the side of the chart that we saw in the example prompt, that is key information, along with any title that's there, right? That tells you what to scan for, all right? Those are important details. We're going to see that in the example question coming up in just a moment. Another strategy here is to use the completed boxes, right? On all of these tables, there will be some completed boxes. These should be treated kind of like examples for the kind of information you should be searching for. In the example prompt we saw at the beginning, it was a simple table there, but there were those times listed. Okay, so we knew that more than likely we would have to search for a specific time for segment 1 that we saw on that chart at the beginning of this lesson. Okay, that's valuable information. So if tip number 2 is to understand the categories that are there, tip number 3 is to then analyze the provided boxes, the provided information on these tables, to help you figure out what type of information it's likely you need to provide for the answer choices that you need to complete for this question type. All right, then the last tip here, try to figure out the type of word required. This is similar for many types of reading questions, short answer in particular. There should be some clues, whether you're looking for a noun or a type of action, a verb, something like that. Okay, you can often, by analyzing the chart, get a good sense of the type of word you need to fill in or the type of phrase you need to fill in to complete what's there on the table. Now, let's practice this a little bit. So we've got a sample chart here, and this chart goes along with the article that you see pasted below in the comments or notes section down below this video there. So I'm going to invite you to complete this question set, and then we'll discuss how to approach it and what the correct answers are. So why don't you go ahead and pause your video now, take a close look at this example question, make sure to use the strategies we discussed in the previous slides here, and then go down and look for the answers. Try to complete this chart on your own. Okay, so pause the video now and answer the questions to the best of your ability. Okay, so hopefully you did well here. All right, for this particular table, we don't have a title, all right, but we do have some key information. So the most helpful information really are these words along the side. I think these really help you to scan, especially a word like sunflower. A long word there, so easy to go find in the text. I think it should stand out among the other words, and it's not a type of organism that's mentioned all the way throughout the article. There's a specific section that mentions this particular flower, so that's a really helpful thing to help you go scan for information. So this information along the left side here, that's really information that will help you sort of figure out where to look in the text. And then the details, the things you're supposed to look for each of these different types of organisms are up here. Okay, these are the things, the categories that supply the answer choices that you're supposed to fill in for 1 and 2 here, and then a different category for 3 over here. All right, so we need to find where does the organism store the toxin? So storage, right? Where does it keep the toxin? With this whole article is about how these plants are amazing at pulling out bad things, bad substances from the ground, okay? And storing it in the organism, doing something with it, right? In this case, the fern and the sunflower keep a particular type of toxin inside themselves, and that is described in the relevant paragraphs in the article. So we just need to go search for where ferns and sunflowers keep these toxins. All right, so let's look at those first. Number 1, in paragraph B, we find that ferns keep toxins in their fronds. It says that idea down here in this particular segment. It says ferns, however, clear substantially more arsenic from the soil than do any other plants. Arsenic is the toxin being discussed, of course, and the part in green here is the key part, accumulating large quantities in their fronds as the chemical passes through their vascular systems. So fronds would be the correct answer to fill in for number 1. It also describes how these toxins are kept in the leaves. Okay, fronds and leaves are the same thing here. So leaves would also be an acceptable answer for number 1 in this case, but fronds is the main one we get from this direct statement in paragraph B. Okay, so fronds or leaves would be your correct answer for this answer choice. Now let's look at number 2. Okay, so where do sunflowers keep their toxins? Where do they store this stuff? Different spot than ferns do. We get that answer down in paragraph C then. Okay, that's the paragraph discussing sunflowers in depth. It says, they too naturally absorb contamination from the earth, but principally store the offending substances in their root systems. Okay, so acceptable answers would be root or root systems for this one, based on what we see here from paragraph C in the text. Okay, for question 3, we had a different category to consider. Now we're moving on from where it stores the toxin to how do we destroy the organism. Okay, so these organisms take in these toxins and they can't just be left out there, because when they die or something happens to them, they will simply absorb that bad stuff back into the earth. So they need to be removed and destroyed in some way. And the article describes that process for all of our organisms mentioned, except for the mushroom. It's not mentioned about the mushroom. For ferns, the article says that they are burned and you store the ashes somewhere. Okay, so that's the strategy for removing ferns that contain these toxins. Now, for sunflowers, it was different. We have the phrase started for us, decomposition by what? Okay, so decomposition, we can guess, is going to be a keyword, a paraphrase of something we find in the article. And sure enough, that idea is down in paragraph E, where it discusses this topic in a little bit of depth. It says, let's just read the whole thing. Phytoremediators, wow, that's a long word, used to extract radioactive waste, however, may pollute the air if burned. To dispose of these plants, okay, that's how we're destroying the organism, all right, so that's where the keyword should take you to find this information. Officials ship them to specialized facilities to be broken down by bacteria. To be broken down is a paraphrase of the idea of decompose, okay, decomposition. And so the word we need to fill in to get this answer correct is bacteria. Again, this part of paragraph E discusses how sunflowers are destroyed, and it says specifically that they are decomposed with the use of specialized bacteria. Okay, they've been genetically engineered in order to break down sunflowers in this way. All right. So that's how we use the categories and the information from the chart to help us find the answers in the text for these types of table completion questions. To review, all right, so the key things to keep in mind, remember that answers usually come from one section of the test. As we just saw in the practice ones that we just did, okay, it can come from 1, 2, maybe 3 paragraphs. It's typically not the case that the answers will be spread out all through the passage. Make sure to pay close attention to the categories and headings on the chart. Look at the title, look at the information at the top and along the side of the chart. That's the information you should use to help you scan for the answers. Use the completed boxes then if you need ideas about what kind of information should go in the chart. Okay, so look for those for examples of the type of information to go search for after you found the general section of the reading passage where you think the answer will come from. And then, if possible, as with all short answer question types in particular, try to figure out the type of word required to fill in the blank. In our example question that we just saw, we had two answer choices. 1 and 2 were specific locations within a plant. Okay, they were the roots and the fronds. We could have guessed that they were going to be nouns we had to look for that are these places on the plant. And decomposition by something, by this preposition there, we could guess another noun. And sure enough, it was bacteria. All right, so if you needed to do that, you could look for the type of word to search for in the passage, which can give you some helpful information there. Okay, so those are our table completion questions. Hopefully you have a good sense of how to approach this question type when you encounter it on the exam.